Can 1 million people really live on Mars? In the year 2050, a city could exist that has never existed before anywhere in the history of life. No air. No water. No food. No protection from a sky that wants to kill you. And yet, one man believes 1 million people will live there. Not visit, not explore, but live, raise children, build homes, die of old age, on a planet 140 million miles from the one that made them. This is not science fiction, this is the most expensive bet ever placed by a single human being, and the question that keeps engineers awake at night is simple: can it actually work? Look up at the night sky, find the faint red dot. For thousands of years, humans have stared at that dot and wondered. The Egyptians called it the Red One, the Romans named it after their god of war. For most of history Mars was a story, a myth, a light too far away to ever touch. Then, in the space of one human lifetime, everything changed. We sent robots to roll across its dust, we sent satellites to map its frozen poles, we found ice, we found evidence of ancient rivers, we found a planet that, 4 billion years ago, may have looked almost like home. And somewhere along the way, a question turned from could we go into could we stay, because going to Mars and staying on Mars are not the same dream. One is an adventure, the other is the boldest, strangest, most dangerous gamble in the history of civilization. This is the story of that gamble, the money behind it, the man chasing it, the science fighting against it, and the brutal question nobody wants to answer out loud: what if 1 million people go, and it doesn't work? To understand the Mars dream, you have to go back further than rockets. You have to go back to a small boy in Pretoria, South Africa, who spent his nights buried in science fiction novels, reading about distant worlds while the real world around him felt too small. Decades later, that boy made his first fortune from an online payment company. He could have spent the rest of his life comfortable. Instead he asked a question almost nobody else was seriously asking in the year 2002, what if humanity never left Earth, and then Earth stopped being survivable? He didn't see Mars as a luxury, he saw it as insurance, a backup drive for the entire human species. So he founded a rocket company with almost no aerospace experience, no government backing, and a financial cushion that could vanish in a single failed launch. Most experts thought he was either a genius or a fool. In rocketry those two are dangerously close to each other, because here is the brutal truth about space travel: it does not forgive mistakes, it does not care about your vision, your money, or your speeches, it only cares about physics, and physics was about to test him. The first rocket exploded. The second rocket exploded. The third rocket exploded. 3 failures in a row, the company's bank account was nearly empty, engineers were exhausted, investors were nervous. By his own later admission, there was enough money left for exactly one more attempt, one launch between the dream and bankruptcy. In September 2008, on the 4th try, the rocket finally reached orbit. People who worked there that day described grown engineers crying in a control room, not because they had built something perfect, but because they had survived long enough to try again. That single successful launch became the foundation for everything that followed: reusable rockets that could land themselves upright, like something out of a movie nobody believed was technically possible, contracts with NASA, satellites that connect remote villages to the internet, astronauts launched from American soil for the first time in almost a decade. And then the real target came into view, a rocket bigger than anything ever built, taller than a 30-story building, designed for one purpose above all others: getting humans to Mars, and bringing enough of them to actually build something there, not a flag-planting mission, a city. The plan sounds almost absurd when you say it out loud: send a fleet of ships, again and again, every time Earth and Mars align, roughly every 26 months, carrying people, equipment, and machinery to manufacture fuel using the Martian atmosphere itself. Over decades, mission after mission, the dream is a self-sustaining colony of 1 million people, But a plan on paper and a planet that wants to kill you are two very different things. Here is what nobody puts in the press conference. Mars has almost no real atmosphere, less than 1% the thickness of Earth's. That means radiation from space pours directly down onto the surface, unfiltered, every single day. There is no magnetic field protecting the planet, the same kind of shield that protects life on Earth from the sun's deadliest particles. The average temperature is colder than Antarctica in winter. At night it can drop to nearly -100 degrees Celsius. The air is almost entirely carbon dioxide. One unprotected breath would not just be uncomfortable, it would be fatal within minutes. Gravity on Mars is only about 38% of Earth's. Scientists still do not fully know what decades of low gravity would do to a human body, or to a child who was born and grew up there, bones forming in a world never designed for them. Every single item needed for survival, water systems, oxygen generators, greenhouses, radiation shielding, medical equipment, has to either be built using Martian resources or hauled 140 million miles across empty space. One mistake in a pressurized habitat doesn't mean an injury, it means the air leaves the room in seconds. This is not colonizing a new continent, this is building a permanent submarine on a planet that is actively trying to crush, freeze, irradiate, and suffocate everyone inside it, forever, with no rescue ship close enough to help in time. So the question stops being can humans survive a trip to Mars, the real question becomes darker, can humans survive Mars long enough to have grandchildren there? Inside the engineering world, the dream split people into two camps. The believers point to the data, cost per launch has fallen dramatically because of reusable rockets, manufacturing speed for spacecraft has increased, technology that seemed impossible 10 years ago, boosters landing themselves back at the launch site, is now almost routine. The skeptics point to a different kind of data, human biology has not changed at all, radiation exposure on a multi-month journey to Mars could raise lifetime cancer risk substantially, bone density loss in low gravity over long periods is severe and not fully reversible with current technology. No human being has ever spent more than roughly 14 consecutive months in space, and even that pushed astronauts to their physical and psychological limits, inside a station only a few hundred kilometers from home, with a return capsule always docked and ready. Mars offers no such option. Once the launch window closes, you're not coming home for 2 years, not because of distance alone, because the planets themselves move out of alignment, and the trip becomes physically impossible until they return. Then there is the financial conflict. Estimates for a single city-building mission to Mars run into the hundreds of billions of dollars before a self-sustaining colony is even close to reality. Critics argue that money could solve enormous problems already here on Earth, poverty, disease, climate adaptation, and that resources are being launched into space instead of invested in the planet we already have. Supporters argue the opposite, that the same engineering breakthroughs required for Mars, closed-loop life support, ultra-efficient energy systems, disease-resistant food production in extreme environments, could eventually help solve crises here on Earth too. Both sides are partly right, and that is exactly what makes this story so difficult to simplify into heroes and villains. This is not a story about good versus evil, it's a story about ambition versus reality, and nobody yet knows which one wins. Then came the moment that changed how seriously the world had to take this question. A rocket, taller than the Statue of Liberty, more powerful than the Saturn V that took humans to the moon, successfully launched, separated, and was caught back at the launch tower by mechanical arms, intact, ready to potentially fly again within hours instead of months. For the first time, fully reusable super heavy rockets stopped being a phrase in a slide deck and became something the entire world watched happen live. Skeptics who had spent years calling the Mars timeline a fantasy had to admit something had genuinely shifted, not the dream, the engineering reality underneath it. This is the turning point in every great documentary. the moment the impossible stops sounding impossible and starts sounding merely extremely difficult. But turning points cut both ways, because as the rocket got closer to being real, the human questions got louder, not quieter. Building a rocket capable of carrying 100 people is an engineering problem. Keeping those 100 people psychologically stable, medically safe, and biologically functional for years on a hostile planet is something humanity has simply never had to solve before. We were no longer asking if we can build the ship, we were asking if humans can survive what's waiting on the other side. Maybe the honest answer is this: 1 million people on Mars by any specific date is not really a prediction, it's a target, a number designed to force an entire industry to move faster than comfort would normally allow. Even the people building this dream privately admit the timeline keeps slipping, engineering always takes longer than ambition wants it to. But somewhere in that gap between the dream and the deadline, something remarkable is still happening. Reusable rockets exist, costs are falling, a new generation of engineers, scientists, and dreamers are being pulled into aerospace because of a promise that once sounded like science fiction. Maybe 1 million people will never live on Mars, maybe it will be 100,000, maybe 10,000, maybe one day just a small research outpost, humanity's first permanent fingerprint on another world, smaller than the dream but historic all the same. Because here is the part: the failures and the funerals and the funding crises can never erase. For the first time since we looked up and named that red dot after a god of war, humanity is no longer just imagining the answer, we're testing it. What can entrepreneurs actually take from this story? First, big visions survive small failures. 3 rocket explosions in a row would have ended most companies. It didn't end this one, because the goal was bigger than any single failure. Second, timelines are tools, not promises. Bold, even unrealistic deadlines can force innovation faster than comfortable ones, as long as the people setting them stay honest when reality pushes back. Third, the hardest problems are rarely the ones you expect. Building the rocket turned out to be, in some ways, easier than solving what happens to the human body and mind once it gets there. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, sometimes the value of an impossible goal isn't whether you fully achieve it, it's everything you're forced to invent while trying.